This episode of The Rate Stuff features discussions of 100% LTV mortgages that some viewers may find distressing. 100 not out. Yes, the 0% down, 100% LTV mortgage is back.
Well, you say that, Jack. We've just had a couple of lenders launch and the products were a little bit challenging in some ways.
Peter, you are always a worrywart. This is a big deal. The media has got its knickers in an absolute twist about the return of the 100% mortgage. Echoes of 2008. I guess the question is this the start of a slippery slope or is it a red herring?
I think it's probably more of a red herring.
Peter, that is a bit of a spoiler. We've got a whole episode to fill. We'll do our best to find more things to say. I'm Jack Izzard.
And I'm Peter Stimson.
And you're watching The Rate Stuff. And breathe. After a pretty wild few months, the mortgage market has just taken a chill pill and reset. It has been a surprisingly calm couple of weeks, Peter, hasn't it, since we last spoke?
It has.
Are you feeling zen? I'm feeling much more chill.
Feeling
now.
zen. I think anyone who works in the mortgage market never feels that zen because there's always something to worry about.
All right, what are you worrying about now then, Peter?
We're worrying. Well, we're kind of worrying because rates have been going the wrong way. You know, we've had kind of a few months where rates have been sort of going down and they've gone up and they've not gone down again. I mean, they've stopped going up, I suppose, is the good news, but they've gone up sort of 20, 25 basis points.
Should I be getting my violin out at this stage, Peter?
Not really. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you've got 2-year rates now around 3.90, 5-year rates starting for around 4%, and that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, compared to where we were, you know, a few months back.
But just break this down for me, because at the start of May, Bank of England cut base rate.
Yes.
Why have we now seen swap rates go up, and why are we starting to see mortgage rates go up?
Well, I mean, it's really why swap rates went down in the first place. So it's partly to do. I mean, the Bank of England cut was anticipated, so that got priced into the curve. You know, significantly ahead of when base rate was cut. But then they've been going up for primarily good news initially, which was the free trade agreement with India and also the USA. Then we had better than expected GDP figures.
Yeah.
And then obviously we had the bad news around inflation, all of which basically pushed swap rates back up again. So, you know, swap rates have gone up around 25 basis points, which is effectively one cut coming out of the curve. So now we're looking at 2-year around 3.85 and 5-year looking around 3.90.
Yeah, so that effectively cancelled out that entire base rate cut that we saw in early May.
It did. Well, it cut out one of the future curves,
right
out of the future curve. So rather than now looking at potentially 2 cuts in the remainder of 2025, we're probably just looking at 1, assuming the markets are correct, of course.
Okay. And so how are lenders feeling? I mean, you're saying they're worried. Is it worried about the future course of the market, or is it the fact they've had to reset their pricing?
I wouldn't say lenders are worried. I mean, basically, lenders have had to adjust their pricing. So rates have gone up sort of 10, 15 basis points. I think lenders would probably like another 10 basis points on the rates from where they are because, you know, again, the very small violins are going to come out for lenders. Lending at the moment is very, very tight in terms of margins and profitability. So, you know, I think if swap rates stay where they are, you could probably get another 5 or 10 basis points onto rates gradually over the next, 2 or 3 weeks.
History is repeating itself, or is it? The 100% LTV mortgage, the villain of the noughties, the years running up to the financial crash, is back. It is back, Peter, right?
It's not back.
Okay, why not?
You've had a couple of lenders announce some stuff and there's been 1 or 2 100% mortgages out there already, but it's a niche product and it's going to remain a niche product. There's quite a few reasons why it's not going to be back. I think the reality is the rates on the 100% mortgages are much higher than you'd get on a 90-95% mortgage.
You're talking like sort of 5.99 or
yeah, you're even 6 on some of them.
Wow.
And the eligibility criteria is very, very difficult in lots of circumstances to qualify, I think, on some of these. It doesn't apply necessarily in all of them, but you know, the credit score is generally much higher because obviously, you know, the risk of, you know, default on the 100% mortgages is potentially much higher, and the loss severity from a bank, you know, from a perspective is obviously incredibly high on 100%. What's obviously more than 100% on 100% mortgage for obvious reasons. So, you know,
It's kind of a product in search of an audience, really, isn't it?
It is a little bit, and it's obviously it gets a lender a lot of PR on it. But there's other alternatives out there. There's a joint borrower, sole proprietor. You've got the sort of Barclays Springboard mortgage. So, you know, if a customer is, you know, looking for, you know, that type of product, there's potentially other alternatives around. So, you know, not saying, you know, by all means, you know, no one want to do it, but it is a niche product. It's going to remain a niche product. And I think from a lender's perspective, they are very difficult to fund simply because of the default probability and potentially the loss severity side of things.
Well, that's why we're seeing a lot of people getting quite hot under the collar, because it has got echoes of 2007, 2008, lenders taking lots of risk. And whether you point the finger of blame at 100% mortgages for the financial crash, it all feels a bit too familiar, doesn't it? So just talk us through the risk. Why are they so risky for lenders?
They're so risky for lenders really for two points of view. First of all, it's the risk of customer default. So, you know, typically customers put a deposit down. The larger the deposit you put down, the less risk of that customer defaulting. Simply the customer's got more skin in the game. Second reason as well is the risk of loss. So if a lender has to take the ultimate sanction of taking a property back, the lender obviously runs a risk of loss. If you put 25% down, the lender's not really going to make a loss. By the time it takes the lender to get a property back, which is going to be anything up to 24 months these days, believe it or not, by the time they've, you know, had a period of trying to, you know, speak to the borrower, go through a plan of action, and ultimately go through the courts. That's best part of 2 years these days. That's, you know, potentially 2 years worth of arrears. Lots of things could have happened to the property in the meantime. It could have been vandalised by the customer. It could have gone into neglect. There's a huge level of potential, you know, loss the lender could face on that. Like I say, if you put 25% down or even 10%, your losses are going to be, you know, much less than if you put 100% down. So a lender has to hold a large level of capital on 100% mortgage versus, you know, almost 0% capital on a 60% mortgage.
So a couple of thoughts. I mean, the first thing is that echo of the bad old days of the noughties these products also rest on a whacking great assumption, and that is house prices are going to continue to rise forever. And you really need prices to keep rising, otherwise you're going to be at real risk of being underwater on a loan this size, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be that assumption going into it from a lender's perspective. So, I mean, lenders. So, first of all, an awful lot has changed from a capital perspective from a lender's side. From 2008. So, you know, that's one of the first learnings is the amount of regulatory capital lenders have to hold from, you know, 2008 to now. So that's the other reason why these loans are not coming back and are much more expensive. So that's the first thing that's going to stop these things coming back in the way that they perhaps did back in the sort of, you know, the mid-noughties. So, you know, that's simply not going to happen.
Okay, so I take your point. There's not going to be a huge amount of demand for these products. It's kind of a product in search of a customer to an extent.
Yes.
But what about the supply side? How easy is it for lenders to start offering products like this anyway?
Oh, it's a lot more challenging from 2008 simply because the level of capital you're going to have to hold is significantly higher. And also you've got the regulators as well. Don't forget, you know, since 2008, you've had the PRA and the FCA impose an awful lot more rules around stress testing and around what lenders can and can't do. So, you know, even if a lender wanted to do it, it's a lot more problematic and a lot more challenging. And like I say, there isn't really the demand, I don't think, for 100% mortgages sitting out there.
Okay, yeah, so we've seen a couple of smaller lenders offering them. It sounds like you're saying it's unlikely we'll see this go mainstream.
It's not a mainstream product as far as I can see.
Okay, so the media getting its knickers in a twist. This is not 2007 Part 2.
It's good headline. I don't think it's anything more.
Now, if there's one thing we all know to be true about house prices, it's location. Location, location, location. Okay, that sounds like three, but it's really just one. And never has that been more true than now, because of course we're seeing house prices rise quite sharply in northern England, but they are flatlining down in the south. But if that's true for house prices, why not mortgages? Could we ever see a day, Peter, when we see mortgages priced differently depending on the region you're buying in?
That's an interesting question, Jack. So, in theory, if you think about it, if you're lending to someone, say, and I'll just use this example, Manchester, where prices might be going up much faster than, say, London, you could lend to someone in day one in Manchester, and in 2 or 3 years' time, they can have significantly more equity than someone in London, and therefore your risk is much lower. So, in theory, at least, you could achieve a better rate. However, you're not allowed to do it. It's called redlining, because essentially what you could be doing is closing off an area or restricting an area's access to funding or mortgage funding.
Right.
Because you could have an area, for example, where an area of significant deprivation, for example, where you decide actually that area doesn't have a significantly good future, and you decide you actually don't want to lend there, or you want to lend to somewhere with very poor rates or something like that. So lending differently or differentially or in some way discriminatorily to a particular area is not allowed. It's called redlining.
Yeah, so favouring one region with favourable rates would effectively mean discriminating against others.
Yes, so one man's good rates is another area's poor rates, so you don't do it. I mean, interestingly, from a rating agent's perspective, if you took mortgage assets and put them into a securitisation bond, they do look at lending on a regional basis and charge accordingly for it. So whilst you as a lender are not allowed to effectively charge for it, a rating agency will.
Okay, so there is a difference in value of those loans, but from a broker-facing perspective, same rate wherever you are.
Same rate wherever you are, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, let's put a pin in that, because that is a great topic. And it's a topic we'll be covering in the next issue of the Rate Stuff. And we're taking the Rate Stuff on the road. We are going to Manchester to record the next episode of the Rate Stuff in the middle of June. Do join us if you can on the 18th of June at the Financial Reporter Awards. I'll be there. Peter, you're going to be taking us through your extensive Manchester back catalogue.
I will be. Stone Roses, Oasis, Charlotte, or Charlatans aren't really Manchester, but all those sort of bands.
If you want to see Peter sing Oasis very badly,
really
you know where to come up.
Really
No one wants to see that. Look, it's been great to see you today. Do join us there at Manchester if you can, or if not, join us on the socials and online at The Rate Stuff.